Hello to everyone out there. We do have a bit of a blur, a bit of a lack of camera focus from the start, but that's okay. Because tonight, I, Poetic Heretic, am going to be talking to you about the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card. And so that is the theme of this evening. As always, if you're watching when this is not live, feel free to fast forward until 5 minutes in, where we will begin the main part of the material. And in the meantime, I'm going to set up the stream. All right, how is our video and audio? All right, how is our video? Very good. Okay, the tweet looks good. We are about a minute and a half away from beginning, all right? So I am live a bit later tonight than usual, that I have been going live as of late. So it should be an interesting variety of experience. Kind of appropriate also for the idea of adjustment. So I'm just gonna wait until we are 5 minutes in. As you can see, I've got my new chair here, which is very comfortable indeed. I enjoy it immensely. And it should make live streaming even more enjoyable than it already is. 15 seconds. Okay, I see we are 5 minutes in, and so now we shall officially begin. So again, I'm Poetic Heretic, and tonight we are looking at the Justice card. We're going to be looking at its surface meanings as well as its deeper, more esoteric meanings. And I do indeed also have the magnificent Thoth version, the Crowley Thoth version of the card known as Adjustment. And we'll be getting deep into that as well. We'll be looking at the symbolism of both cards, the meaning of both cards, and we're even going to be looking particularly at times at the Thoth version, since it is the significance and power of its symbolism is matched perhaps only by the Rider-Waite version, if even that, as far as I can tell. So just a few preliminary remarks. I want to remind people, as always, that I am just offering my unique interpretations of these cards. They're not always going to match other people's interpretations, or not even necessarily the more esoteric stuff that we'll be getting into, because I come in this from a highly individualistic perspective. I don't belong to any occult orders or organizations or anything like that. I'm not interested in doing that. That's not my way of going about things, but I am going to present my interpretation from years of study on these and similar subjects. Other than that, the format is going to be the same as usual. I'll start off by explaining, giving an overview, my interpretation of the card, my overview of the card, its meaning when it comes to both human consciousness and when we get it in tarot readings. And then we'll be looking up additional information and interpretations, and I'll be giving my opinion on that as we go through that. And of course, I'll take any comments and questions on the material as we are going over it. And so we'll kind of go back and forth from surfacey and deeper meanings and interpretations as usual. That'll more or less be the pattern that we take. And I hope to be live for quite a few hours tonight, basically all night, I guess. It's 9:55 p.m. Eastern time as I'm recording this, and I hope to be live all night going over this material, since we are starting now. All right, so indeed, this is the Justice card. As far as it relates to one's experience in human consciousness, again, this is a situation where my knowledge of that is somewhat limited, so I'm just going to go over what we know, and then we're going to find out a lot more as the stream goes. Another thing I wanted to mention is that I am by no means an expert on this material. I wouldn't consider myself that. I am a student of it just as much as anyone, but I have gained quite a bit of knowledge, and so I'm learning just as much as anyone else in these streams. But anyway, so in terms of human consciousness, what do I think of when I see this card, one's journey through life? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the most obvious, the idea of justice and seeking justice, of the need to see things clearly, coming to a point on your journey where maybe your actions are being weighed against someone else's, or there does have to be a major decision or turning point in your life, but not the kind of turning point that we saw last week with the Wheel of Fortune card, but instead a turning point where a decision is made and then you go forward from there. Other than that, I tend to think of on sort of the Fool's journey that by this point in the major arcana, the Fool has experienced an amount of injustices, an amount of challenges, injustices, and maybe that person wants justice for them at this point. That's what comes to my mind anyway. And so I think that this can represent that time in life where you've sort of come somewhat far, you've come a significant amount of way or distance on your spiritual journey, and it's time to balance some things out, basically. Balance out those injustices by getting justice. So that's what I think of. But again, with this card, when it comes to the experience and human consciousness, again, my knowledge is actually limited. I freely admit that. And so we'll be looking up stuff as usual. I'm sure we'll get deep into what that means with the various sources that we have. One other interesting thing I noticed, though, is the two pillars on this card are reminiscent of the pillars of Yakin and Boaz on the High Priestess card, card 2. And of course, this is card 11, and 1 + 1 is 2. And so theoretically, there's a connection there. Of course, on the Thoth version, I know it's considered card 8. And so that's like a whole different connotation, but we'll get more into that. So I'm thinking, one thing I'm wanting to know is what is this card's connection with the High Priestess card? Because actually, I don't know. I could guess, but I don't really know. And so I'm sure we'll get more into that. Let's see, what else could be said about this? It's ruled by the sign of Libra, of course, the sign of balance, the sign of diplomacy, the sign of seeking harmony, an air sign, so a mental sign, a logical sign, a sign that sees things, sees the world through the intellect, and is very good at being a judge of things, seeing both sides of things, seeing things objectively, because indeed, Libra, balance, is all about encompassing both sides or all sides, seeing both sides, seeing all sides of things. So objectivity and good judgment, stuff like that. Now, obviously, on a more obvious and like mundane level or whatever, this card would talk about court cases and stuff like that. I think that's just obvious, so I'm not going to get into that really right now, at least, but I will throw that out there. As for what this card means in a reading, in a tarot spread reading, well, when I get it, I am going to think most of, again, the idea of seeing clearly, seeing objectively, seeing both sides of things, even getting justice for a certain kind of situation. The need to see clearly, like you could already be in a state where you're not mentally focused enough, and this is a card reminding you to become more focused, or you may be heavily biased, and this card is reminding you to be less biased about things. I would say that's it primarily, unless the situation is going to have to do with the idea of also like balance and equilibrium. It's going to depend on the question, but that can come into play a lot of times. Even like, especially if like I got this card for the outside force coming in a Celtic cross spread, I would think it would likely represent something that was like a balancing force that was going to sort of correct some other imbalance. And yes, if you've watched my streams before, you may know that I have an issue with the idea of balance, and I'm sure we'll get into that in the stream at some point, but I don't want to be sidetracked by that right now. But I'm acknowledging it here. Yes, there's an issue with balance, and yet balance is a valid experience and an important part of life, regardless, even if there are many, I think, misconceptions about it, or people have misused it over the years, or whatever. We'll get deeper into that. Now, if I get this card reversed, what do I interpret it most as? Usually the idea of not seeing clearly, not seeing objectively, bad verdicts, bad outcomes, not getting the outcome that you wanted, unfairness, being treated unfairly, injustice, things like this. And so we will, of course, get deeper into it as we go. Interestingly enough, with its association with the planet Venus, ruled by Venus, It's so fascinating because Venus is all about love and harmony. Well, harmony is more fitting, but like love and sensuality and things that we enjoy and relationships and stuff like that. And so I guess relationships also a little more connected, but like this idea of, oh, like, the glamour of things and the sensuality of things almost seems a little bit strange to apply to the Justice card, but we'll probably get more into that and why that is. I think that perhaps one of the biggest aspects of that, though, is that Venus has to do with relationships, and this is a card of balance, and so you can kind of see where that's going. You need you need to consider both parties in a relationship, and there has to be fairness and things like this. And it's important to see objectively, see clearly. That's also going to tie into it being an air card and stuff like that. The only other thing, and I don't really hear people talk about this much, and yet I feel like it's an inevitable thing, is that with it being card 11, at least here in the Rider-Waite version, that's going to associate it with the 11th house and with the sign of Aquarius. And so where should we begin? 11th house of social networking. So the idea of networking and stuff like that, the idea of groups. And so that factors into its interpretation, whether you're doing a spread reading or you're trying to understand the deeper significance of the card. At least theoretically it has to. And then, of course, the sign of Aquarius, a very intellectual sign, a very often detached sign, a sign that is able to see things very clearly from its detached perspective. And then also, and we may be getting sort of far from the meaning of the card here, but Aquarius is a highly unpredictable sign. And so is there an element in this card of that which is unpredictable? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Like I said, I don't know everything about these cards. I don't think anyone does. Then here we come to the strangest of situations. We come to the Crowley-Thoth version of the card that Aleister Crowley himself designed. And as you can see, it's card 8. Now, I've asked over the years to myself and others, why the hell is this card 8? And I believe that when we were doing the strength stream on the strength card, also known as the lust card, we got some of this answer, although it kind of escapes me right now, but we'll probably come upon more of this information throughout the stream because we'll be looking at some of those same sources. But it's very strange. For the longest time, and basically before that stream, I thought, this shouldn't be card 8. In fact, I was thinking once I finally got this deck for myself, I was literally going to take a black marker and cross out the 8 on it and put the number 11 there in its place, because I thought there's just no way that this should be card 8. But the thing is, there may be another reason for it after all. Maybe it factored into the particular system that Crowley and the order that he was in used at the time. So I don't know. We'll see, though. It's very strange because it's like card 8 in the Rider-Waite deck is known as the strength card. And so you have, for example, I'm just going to try to sum this up. You have in the order of that deck, card 7, the Chariot, card 8, Strength, card 9, the Hermit. Cancer, Leo, Virgo, the order of the zodiac. Well, in this deck, you have card 7 being Lust, the equivalent to Strength in the Rider-Waite. Then you have card 8 being Adjustment, the equivalent to Justice in the Rider-Waite. And then, of course, card 9 is the Hermit. Well, now we have Leo, Libra, Virgo in the astrological correspondence procession in those 3 cards. And that's not the order of the zodiac. And, it starts with, I guess, the Emperor card. It goes Aries, then Hierophant, Taurus, the Lovers, Gemini, the Chariot, Cancer, Strength/Lust, Leo. And then we come to card 8, which in or well, strength is card 8. See, it's so tricky. Strength is card 8 in the Rider-Waite, and then it's card 11, but it's known as lust in the Crowley Thoth. But we come to that point, and the astrological correspondences are all screwed up. So instead of going Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, it goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Libra, if we use this system. And that doesn't exactly make sense to me. But again, there may be a good reason for that, and maybe we'll figure out what it is on the stream, or at least maybe figure out more of why it is that. But anyway, if we're going to accept this as being card 8, that's also going to inevitably associate it with the 8th house and with the sign of Scorpio. And so just for the sake of entertaining the thought, let us consider here the 8th house is, of course, the house of death and taxes and business and other people's money and that which is all or nothing. And of course, Scorpio, that sign, very similar energy, very deep and passionate, very all or nothing, very much focused on that which really matters, the dark side of life, the bare bones of things, getting to the heart of things and stuff like that. And so does that match the energy of this card? I mean, maybe in some ways it kind of does, the idea of other people's business and, sort of dealing with things in that powerful sense. But I don't know. I don't know. I still have mixed feelings on it to this day. So hopefully we can get deeper into it. But anyway, other than that, the Thoth version of the card here is like all cards in the Thoth deck, so rich with esoteric symbolism. And we'll be going over all of it bit by bit eventually later on in the stream. But here, I'll give a little close-up right now. Like most cards in the Rider-Waite are not super rich with occult symbolism. Like it's there, but it's not anywhere nearly as prevalent as in the Crowley Thoth deck. The Thoth deck has the symbolism all over the place. So that's what we have there. So that's basically my overview of the card. That's how I see it, my interpretation. And now we're going to look up additional stuff about it. We're going to start with the Biddy Tarot ebook, which is somewhere between a surfacey and a deeper interpretation or study of the card. And it's more focused around the Rider-Waite, but basically everything that I'd say virtually everything you hear in this will apply to the Thoth version as well. So we're going to go over that as soon as I take a little breather. I'm just going to grab a tissue, and then we'll continue. All right, so let us begin. Justice. Description. Justice is ruled by Libra, of course. The rune is Tyr, T-I-R. The number 11 is a higher octave of the number 2. The Justice veil represents the superconscious. The little square on her crown represents well-ordered thoughts. Here, I'll hold this up so you can see it. I was just talking about the symbolism on it. See if I can get it just right there. Okay. So the Justice veil represents the superconscious. The little square on her crown represents well-ordered thoughts. The sword is double-edged, cutting both ways, signifying impartiality. Its point up signifying victory. It's in her right hand, showing the logical, well-ordered mindset necessary to dispense fair justice. The scales are in our left, intuitive hand, showing that logic balanced by the intuition. Notice the clasp holding the cloak. The square is the law protecting the circle, the eternal state of oneness within us all. Through visualization and meditation, justice assists you in breaking through the veils of illusion or deception. This archetype helps you achieve and maintain balance in all aspects of your life. On card 11, we see the familiar figure of justice. She has the scales of equality and impartial judgment in one hand and the sword of decision in the other. In the tarot, justice represents the understanding that life is ultimately fair and just. Even though the vagaries of day-to-day life tend to make us doubt this fact, justice reminds us that there is divine balance. Notice the similarity between the Emperor and Justice. Both cards stand for universal order. The Emperor in its underlying structure, justice in the action of karma, cause and effect. Okay, so those are the description and the symbolism of it. Just checked on the stream here. Okay. And I also ask that everyone remember that the reason that we are studying these cards, again, as I always say, is that by studying them, you study yourself. By learning about them, you learn more about yourself. These cards are a reflection of the archetypes of human consciousness and of the path through life, at least when one chooses to embark upon their spiritual journey. It's interesting. I was reading some more about the Fool card just the other night, and it talked about how the Fool is actually, and this does tie in, the Fool is actually supposed to represent a person before they go out on their spiritual journey, And what's interesting about that is we apparently sort of have the option of not embarking on a spiritual journey. We sort of have the option of living life, perhaps you could say, inauthentically. We have the option of, choosing not to live a meaningful life, just going along to get along and whatnot. But I don't know, to each their own, but for me personally, even for myself, someone who prioritizes feeling good above all else, I have found that really the only path that feels good to me is the authentic path, is the spiritual path. In fact, it almost seems absurd to take anything else. Like for me, taking the spiritual path is the easier path. Like it would be harder on me if I tried not to take it. And so I almost don't understand what people say sometimes when they're like, oh, the spiritual path is the hard path. Well, if it was the hard path, I wouldn't be taking it. At least for me personally. Maybe it's hard for other people. I don't know. But whatever. Let us continue with the meanings. Balanced judgment exists. Justice will be served. Lawsuits won. Desire to further education. Eliminate excess baggage that is being carried around. Truth. You need to know and speak the truth and perceive it in the words and deeds of others. Be fair and just with all, and you will soon be able to detect dishonesty in yourself and others. Learn the rules that govern what you are involved with. This is a serious feel to card, or there is a serious feel to card 11, the tone of the courtroom. This card refers to legal matters of all kinds, but is not restricted to them. The courts are where judgments are made and decisions rendered. Our legal system is the official arena in which we explore the principles of justice, fairness, impartiality, and the quest for truth. In readings, justice often appears when you are concerned with doing what is right or making sure you receive your due. This card can also appear when you are feeling the impact of a past mistake or good deed. The cause you set in motion at one time is now returning to you as an effect. Sometimes justice is a signal to do what needs to be done. A time comes when responsibilities must be accepted and accounts settled. The past will continue to haunt you if you do not recognize your mistakes and make amends for them. You will need to weigh matters carefully and perhaps make important decisions about your future course. Another thing I just thought of about this card that it reminds me of is Well, kind of like I was saying earlier about the idea of getting justice for injustices, because there are so many spiritual teachers who will tell you that focusing on injustices will just bring more injustices to you. And I say to that, well, maybe that's true to an extent, but if you are suffering from an injustice that you experienced and you don't do anything about that suffering, about that trauma, if you don't process it in some way, then it's going to get worse and worse. Like, just by it being unprocessed within you, you are, in a sense, continually focusing upon it. And so, we have this whole idea, and so much of like the sort of new age community who says, oh, well, you shouldn't try to get justice for anything because you create your own reality. Well, I think that is a view that is so oversimplified, it leads to a complete like misinterpretation. And one of the things that adds credence to that is that if we're not supposed to get justice for things, if there's not supposed to be some kind of objective, perhaps even moral judgment about things, then why the fuck is the justice card one of the cards of the major arcana in tarot? One can say, oh, they made a mistake. Well, study tarot for a few years and then tell me if you have that same opinion. I don't think it was any mistake at all. And in fact, I know personally, and this comes back to what might this apply to in describing one's journey through life, one's spiritual journey. I know personally, I am mad as hell about the injustices that I have experienced, about the trauma and abuse that I've experienced throughout my life, ever since childhood and, right up until relatively recent years, basically. I am mad as hell about the injustices I've experienced, and I sure as fuck want justice for what I've experienced. Now, no one take that out of context. I'm not advocating any kind of violence or anything like that. I'm talking justice of the fair kind, the legal kind, the peaceful kind, the kind that the justice card talks about. I'm talking some kind of moral rectification, some kind of, what's the term I'm even looking for? I had it a moment ago, now it's escaping me. Almost like some kind of maybe exposure of injustices so as to help get justice, So I don't want anyone to ever think when I do these streams that this is some like impersonal theoretical thing I'm doing all the time. I mean, I know I always say this, but yeah, let me just remind people, as much as I'm interested in, bringing this stuff to other people and helping other people with what I know and what I'm coming to know and doing these streams, it's also personal for me. I sure as hell want justice, and I'll say that as often as I need to until something is done about it. That'll be my position for my entire life, if that's what it takes to get some kind of justice. I completely reject this idea from so many spiritual teachers that we shouldn't ever focus on injustices because that'll just bring us more injustices, and it was never an injustice anyway because you create your own reality all along. Well, so-and-so who experienced the whether literal or apparent injustice didn't know that they create their own reality when they experience the injustice. They didn't know that, and even if they did, that still doesn't negate the reality of the experience of it. Even if it's an illusion, illusions can seem very freaking real. That's the issue I have. Look at the planet Neptune. Illusions can seem very real. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Justice represents fairness and equality in matters of contracts and litigations. A contract could be a marriage license, divorce decree, or financial arrangement. want an emotional level of expression to rejuvenate or correct a problem area, or to perfect an idea so that it can be put to good use. You have just completed a cycle of destiny, and a brand new cycle is about to commence. The present will have to evolve before it can be weighed or judged, and time will provide the key to the understanding that you need. Justice's scales are balanced, thus its appearance indicates, first of all, that events have worked out as they were meant to work out, that what is happening to you comes from decisions and situations in the past. You have what you deserve. Secondly, it indicates a need and possibility for seeing the truth of this outcome. At the same time, it shows that your actions in the future can be changed by a lesson learned in the present situation. We cannot become honest without ourselves, without extending that honesty to ourselves and others. In this sense, the card carries the obvious meaning of justice, fairness, honesty, correct actions, and in legal matters, a just decision. When this card appears, the art of decision-making is required. Something in your life needs attention, mediation, a solution. Are you the person to render judgment, or is your role to accept the decision that is made? If your reading is about a disagreement, a cooling off period is suggested, reconciliation and movement toward cooperation. A realization that if everyone plays fair, a positive outcome can be had. It can also mean the inner umpire, your conscience, that can make the quote-unquote right decision. Need for better inner balance, time for work and action, balancing health habits, need to discriminate as to what is best for the self, need to create one's own joy, taking responsibility for one's actions and relationships, looking at another side of an issue, looking at the pros and cons, need to cut away unnecessary baggage, affirmation. By creating greater balance within, I create more joy in my life. So if one wanted to use this card as a sort of point of meditation or something like that, they could use that affirmation. Again, it is by creating greater balance within, I create more joy in my life. Just remember, never affirm anything you don't believe. Keywords: justice, fairness, karma, cause and effect. And there's a very short reverse section, so we shall read that now. Reversed. Reversed, the card means dishonesty to yourself and others. It shows an unwillingness to see the meaning of events, and shows that you are missing some opportunity for a greater understanding of yourself and life. Injustice, inequality, legal complications, a biased mind. Use mercy and understanding when judging others. All right. So that's that. Any questions? I want to take a breather before the next source that we look into. I always want to check on the integrity of the stream from time to time, make sure everything is as it should be. Yes, it looks good. All right, so as usual, we will do a simple internet search, read a website or two, and then we'll go into even deeper meanings. Because usually the websites give us surfacey meanings, which are important as well as we come to understand, as we begin to understand the cards. But eventually we, of course, must look at the deeper meanings. We don't want to just be told what to believe. We want to understand why we should believe it. So, justice card. Let's see what we get. All right, here's Keen.com with their article on the justice card. The Justice Tarot card. When it is time for you to do the right thing, make a big move that involves absolutes, or to accept responsibility for some of your actions and move on, the tarot deck will reveal the Justice card in your reading. There is little you will be able to back out of once you set the course demanded by the tarot's justice. That's something else that's interesting that I want to mention real quick, because since every card of the major arcana is both the reflection of and the opposite of the card that came before it and the card that comes after it. Well, last week we had the Wheel of Fortune card, which is all about like change and ongoing developments and stuff like that. And that's kind of in contrast to the sort of stern decision making of the Justice card. So that might give you a better idea of the overall vibe of this card if you compare it to what we had last week. And of course, next week will be the Hanged Man, which we'll just get into that when we when we get to it. She sits on an unadorned stone seat, wearing the red robes of a servant to the court and a simple crown on her head. Hanging between two gray stone pillars, a cloth behind her obscures a golden sky. In her left hand is a scale, evenly balanced. In her right hand is a sword, held upright. The robe and crown denote her status as a servant above the reprimands of authority, but beholden to the law. The scales represent opposing arguments on both sides of the story, the possibilities of what will happen depending on the choices you make. The sword represents the finality of the decision you will make. The sword will cut the possibilities of other things happening. That's interesting. I'm going to reread that because it interests me that much. The robe and crown denote her status as a servant above the reprimands of authority, but beholden to the law. The scales represent opposing arguments, both sides of the story, the possibilities of what will happen depending on the choices you make. The sword represents the finality of the decision you will make. The sword will cut the possibilities of other things happening. All right. Meaning in past, present, and future positions. Each tarot reading finds cards landing in positions representing your past, present, and future. When the Justice card lands in the past position, the foundation of your current situation can be traced to a decision you made a while ago. Be it marriage, divorce, having children, or leaving home for college, think as to what it might have been. The choice that you made then was the definite beginning of a new chapter of your life and a severance with your past. Justice does not weigh in on whether you made a bad choice or a good choice. This card only weighs in to certify that your choice indicated an absolute break from the many possibilities life was offering you. So justice does not weigh in on whether you made a bad choice or a good choice. This card only weighs in to certify that your choice indicated an absolute break from the many possibilities life was offering you. And so again, like I was saying earlier, we have before in the Wheel of Fortune card, all of these many and varied possibilities. And now we have this time in the Justice card, a split from those many and varied possibilities, or a break from those possibilities. In the present position, the Justice card represents a situation facing you that requires a decision. The card alone does not indicate the specific nature of the decision you are being moved to make. It could be a decision involving your educational future, your love life, the path of a good friendship, or the path a good friendship might be taking, the purchase or selling of real estate, taking a particular job. It could be something epic in your life plan or something that appears to be a small decision in the scheme of things. The presence of the Justice card in your tarot reading indicates that your coming decision is an irreversible one and that your free will in making it will be a force that pours a foundation on which the rest of your life may be setting. When the Justice card appears in the future position of your tarot reading, the things that you are working on in life now are inevitably leading you toward having to make a big decision. We think of many things in life as solid, but no matter how firm they are, most things are fleeting or transitory. The deepest friendships of our youth are affected by geography and the shift of what we choose to do with our lives. These shifts are imperceptibly slow, but it is as if they do not actually change until we notice that they are changing. By then, they are too far removed from what they once were to ever be again as we live them. The tarot is telling you to get ready for a big change, no matter how minor a decision you are about to make. So they're saying when it appears in the future position, you're moving towards a big decision. Yeah, I think these interpretations make a lot of good sense. I would just remind people, as usual, that there's always going to be more potential interpretations than just such a limited number. Card combinations. The cards that are placed into your reading influence one another. Each card informs other parts of the reading and is strongest in impacting the cards dealt closest to it. When justice appears in a reading with a magician card, someone who is trying to get you to make a decision is misleading you. It is important to get all the facts. When the high priestess is paired with justice, someone close to you has all the answers to give you the best advice possible at this time, but you will have to approach this person. Again, I would just say there's always going to be more possibilities than that. As resolute as the Justice card is in indicating that a coming decision is bound to have an impact, it can be a maddening riddle regarding what the decision will be. Is the card indicating the decision to make an appointment for another tarot reading next month, or the decision to move in with your boyfriend early next year? If there are many cards from the same suit in your reading, this is a good indicator of what Justice is declaring as your coming impactful decision. Pentacles are cards that underscore the material plane. Lots of these cards in a reading with Justice indicate a big financial decision is looming. When the suit of swords figures prominently in your reading and the Justice card is present, the coming impactful decision will definitely be announced to those that will be feeling its effects. If the suit of cups is all over your reading along with Justice, the decision you make regarding a love relationship will shape the rest of your life. A reading that sees the Justice card in the presence of many cards from the suit of wands indicates that a business or creative decision made soon will have a measurable impact on your career for years to come. The Justice card has a special relationship with the aces of each suit. Be it the Ace of Pentacles, Swords, Cups, or Wands, the presence of any ace in a reading with the Justice card gives the decision you are about to make a special blessing, a little luck in your corner as you sever, I think it's supposed to say sever, the path to the past and move forward on your journey. So I know in the past I'll often give my interpretation of like the different card combinations in this or other articles, but I just don't think it's necessary at this point. You know, suffice to say that yes, those are some interpretations, but there's always going to be other potential interpretations. If you see the Justice card with another card or any two or more card combinations, I guess that should be obvious. All right, so that concludes that article. Looks like next is trustedtarot.com, which we'll get to in a moment. I'm wondering, since this is the first live stream that I've done that will be lasting basically very late into the night hours, wondering what it's going to be like as we go throughout the night. Like, am I going to get very many viewers? I mean, I never really do anyway, but I'm wondering because it's been forever what it's going to be like. It should be interesting is all I'm saying. So, trustedtarot.com, Justice card. Justice. Balance, equality, fairness, justice, law, and legal matters. After this article, we're going to look at something deeper. Justice's meaning. Justice is a very good card to find in your spread if you have acted with kindness and fairness towards others, and especially if you have been a victim. It is a significant indicator of a positive resolution, although how and what sort will depend on your own experiences. If you have been unfair, abusive, or otherwise shady and immoral in your dealings, though, pay heed. For the unjust, this card is, at best, a dire warning to change your ways before retribution falls upon you, and, at worst, a simple statement that it is already too late. In neutral cases, it may simply be telling you to seek out balance in your life. Past. Balancing your emotions will pay off and bring you harmony in relationships. The confusion of your life can be overcome if you find inner balance. All right, so this article is saying that if you find the Justice card in the past position in a tarot reading, then balancing your emotions will pay off and bring you harmony in relationships. The confusion of your life can be overcome if you find inner balance. Yeah, and we're going to have to get into this sometime soon because I bet this idea is going to be all through the various articles and sources that we read today of this idea of balance and inner balance, which I have to say is highly misleading because what we really want is not balance but unity. And I am not splitting hairs here because balance, how do I put this very simply? In order for there to be balance, there must be two or more of something. In order for there to be two or more of something, there must be separation or division. And if there's separation or division, then there is a lack of unity. And unity is what we're reaching for. Separation and division is moving in the opposite direction. So just because you give like equal weight of each part doesn't mean you're actually unifying those parts. What we really want is inner unity. We really want to unify the opposing aspects within ourselves. We don't want to weigh the needs of one aspect of ourselves against another aspect of ourselves so that like one part has to give up something and the other part has to give up something. No, we want to find a third option, an option that makes it so both parts of ourselves get their needs met. Or if there's more than two, then that all parts of ourselves get their needs met. And the same thing comes to its representation in the external world when it comes to human relationships. And so we don't want balance, we want unity. We don't want balance, we want integration. And I know that's going to be an issue like with this card, but I'm going to have to continually say that so that we hopefully get this message across to as many people as possible, because balance, while certainly necessary when it comes to a lot of the things like the Justice card talks about, you know, the idea of being able to judge things fairly and impartiality and stuff like that, it is not what we want when it comes to our inner world, nor is it even what we want in relationships. We want unity, unification, integration. So I'm going to have to continually emphasize that, basically. Present. You will receive some gift of advice or have a debt repaid to you. Future. When all is said and done, you will receive the outcome that you truly deserve. Your moral character will be justified, so maintain integrity and strive to balance yourself. Yes, no key interpretation. The Justice card is all about karma, fairness, and balance in different affairs in your life. It does not suggest an outcome that is either for or against you, but accountability, dignity, and integrity are all linked to its presence. There is no clear-cut answer to your question. All right, so that concludes that article. Does anyone have any questions before we proceed? feel like there was something else I was going to assess real quick, and I can't even remember what it was. But no matter. Let's load the next article. So now we are going to be looking at the Thoth version of the card that we have right here, known as Adjustment. And we're going to be looking at esotericmeanings.com, a very good source for information on the Thoth deck. So let me just bring it up real quick. Okay, again, this is esotericmeanings.com. All right, are we good to go? Freaking phone glitching out on me. All right. Now, it says here my new YouTube channel is Thoth Tarot Videos, so check out that channel. Credit goes there. And again, esotericmeanings.com. This says Thoth Adjustment card. The Thoth Adjustment Tarot card is very much about free will, choice, and the universal action of karmic balancing adjustment with respect to the choices we all make throughout life. Our choices can be from a wide range of possibilities, represented by the alpha and omega of the card, but in order to make the most enlightened choice for us, our actions must be in resonance with our true will, which simply put, is the main life lesson for which we have incarnated this time. So it is merging of the free will of us as human beings with the true will of the soul, which has been set up for our particular life purpose. See, now we're really getting into the good stuff. So it shows it on screen right now, so I'll show it for real right now. Although on screen you might be able to see it even more clearly because of the brightness. And then, of course, there's the Rider-Waite, which it shows real quick, and then differences between Thoth Adjustment Tarot card and Rider-Waite Justice. Justice. A judgment is about to happen. It implies a decision of legal implications and very much to do with the discretion of man and his personality. So that refers to the Rider-Waite version. Now, adjustment implies karmic cause and effect in a much more impersonal and universal way. The judgment has already been made as there is balance in the card as seen in the symmetry. Harmony has been established after the disharmony has been cut away by her sword. So with justice, it's much more about the idea of a judgment is about to happen and stuff like that. And then adjustment implies karmic cause and effect in a much more impersonal and universal way. The idea of the judgment already having been made. See, so the Thoth version is almost like already, just by its very meanings and implications and connotations, something significantly deeper, more meaningful than what we see in the Rider-Waite, as great as that is. Thoth Adjustment and the Tree of Life. And you can see it going between Geburah and Tifereth. Yes. Show that little model right there. Hopefully it'll focus sometime soon. I mean, it's highlighted, so I'm sure you can see where it is regardless. There we go. Adjustment occupies the path between Geburah and Tifereth. Geburah, the destructive aspect of man who descends upon Tifereth. Tifereth, the heart of man. So let that sink in. We're going to take this slow as needed. It's Justice or adjustment is on the path from Geburah to Tifereth. Geburah represents the destructive aspect of man who descends upon Tifereth, and then Tifereth represents the heart of man. Implied in this is that we have to follow our true will and bring some order into the chaos and infinite possibilities and potential of the fool. Following our true will is like aligning to our life's calling, the best possible expression of who we can be. In doing this, we use the destructive power of Geburah to pull away all those aspects of our life which are not serving our highest good, so we become more focused on our true path and reveal what is in our heart center, Tifereth. Hence the term adjustment. This links in with the fact that this action must be born out of love, as stated in the Book of the Law described below. This may also occur karmically with circumstances beyond our conscious control if we go too far off our path. This process happens on every level, and so we have a universal law stating every action has a consequence, and the universe adjusts to the change. And I just hit my hand on my desk. Anyway, so one thing that kind of brings to mind, and I'm not sure if this is a direct connection or not, but it's interesting to note that with adjustment going from Geburah to Tifereth, well, Geburah is on the side of the tree of life, and I'll show it again here. It's on the side of the tree of life ruled by Saturn, the pillar of severity and understanding. And although Geburah is ruled by Mars from what we see here, but this idea of like karma and cause and effect and stuff like that, or especially karma and you get what you deserve, is very much all about the planet Saturn. So I think there's probably a reason for that, though. While I do know quite a bit about tarot and astrology, if I do say so myself, I know very little about the Tree of Life. I'm still learning about that, so I'm not going to say I know that for sure. The figure in the card is also the He final or Phenol in the Tetragrammaton, and therefore the lower consciousness. However, as we have seen in previous videos, she is reabsorbed into the Tetragrammaton and the cycle is repeated. Therefore, this implies a process of raising our consciousness through this card, so we are expressing our higher self through adjustment and following our true will when the lower self, princess, dies to become the queen. This cycle can be seen in the image below. Okay, then it shows an image right here. Let's focus in on that some more because that's kind of a lot to take in. So the last paragraph. The figure in the card is also the He final in the Tetragrammaton and therefore the lower consciousness. However, as we have seen in previous videos, she is reabsorbed into the Tetragrammaton and the cycle is repeated. Therefore, this implies a process of raising our consciousness through this card, so we are expressing our higher self through adjustment and following our true will when the lower self, you see, that's where it's losing me, okay. Therefore, this implies a process of raising our consciousness through this card, so we are expressing our higher self through adjustment and following our true will when the lower self, princess, dies to become the queen. Process of raising our consciousness through this card, so we are expressing our higher self through adjustment and following our true will when the lower self, princess, dies to become the queen. And then it says the cycle can be seen in the image below. And that's interesting. So about the raising of consciousness. Interesting. Almost like a sacrifice or a metamorphosis or something. I wonder if we could be seeing hints of the Hanged Man card to come next week. Card following this one. Well, then again, that's only the Rider-Waite. In the Crowley Thoth version of things, the Hermit card follows adjustment. So that's a whole different sort of thing. And then again, of course, there's that circle of life image with infinity at both ends. Thoth, adjustment, Hebrew, and astrological attribution. The adjustment tarot card is ruled by Libra, which emphasizes the energy of this card being all about balance and equilibrium, karmic cause and effect, bringing a situation into balance, weighing the pros and cons. Adjustment is associated with the Hebrew letter lamed, meaning ox goad. The goad is a traditional farming implement used to spur or guide livestock, usually oxen, which are pulling a plow or a cart, used also to round up cattle. It is a type of long stick with a pointed end, also known as the cattle prod. Interesting. And here it shows some more images, and it says a goad is a sharp pointed stick for urging on cattle, etc. It shows that, and it shows the Hebrew glyph. In some ways, therefore, this card can represent a form of restriction, as the ox is restricted to go in the direction of the ox goad, implying the adjustment card is about self-control. Isn't that fascinating? A form of restriction, as the ox is restricted to go in the direction of the ox goad, implying the adjustment card is about self-control. Astrologically, this card is associated with Libra, which is ruled by Venus. Venus is the goddess of beauty, and Tifereth also means beauty. There is beauty in the underlying balance of the universe if we look for it in whatever way we can. So from Geburah to Tifereth, and the first is ruled by Mars, the latter is ruled by Venus, the masculine and feminine principles, and this is the idea of adjustment or balance. All right, so I'm going to take a little breather real quick. Make sure everything is good to go. How do we look and sound right now? How do we look and sound right now? Okay, good. Sorry, I always like to check that occasionally just in case. But anyway, let us continue. Close relationship of adjustment and the Fool cards. Full Hebrew letter is Aleph, which equals A. Adjustment Hebrew letter is Lamed, equals L. There is a thelemic formula, AL, Aleph Lamed. AL in Hebrew means God. In Wikipedia, we have El Shaddai, or just Shaddai, is one of the names of the God of Israel. El Shaddai is conventionally translated as God Almighty. The name appears 48 times in the Bible, 7 times as El Shaddai. That's interesting. And so it's associating that with the idea of you take the Fool card and the adjustment card, the Fool card, Aleph A, and the adjustment card, Lamed L, put them together, Al, and it says in Hebrew, Al means God. And then we have this El Shaddai thing. If the letters are reversed, they become La, which means nothing in Hebrew. I wonder how people living in LA would feel about that. If we have LA, nothing, O and God, the totality, including duality, equals 2, then we have the Thelemic equation, the 0 equals 2. This is where this article is losing me a bit. Let's see here. If we have LA, nothing, equal 0, and God, the totality, including duality, equals 2. Oh, wait, now I'm starting to get this. Yeah, I get it now. Then we have the Thelemic equation, 0 equals 2. It's because, so LA means nothing, and nothing can be represented by, of course, the number 0, obviously enough. So LA equals 0. And then God, and then it says the totality, including duality, equals 2. Because, weirdly enough, like I was talking about earlier, for there to be balance, or in this case, for there to be duality, there must be 2. And so here in this, within this context at least, it's saying God equals 2. Then we have the Thelemic equation, 0 equals 2. This can be seen, it says next, in the 2 of discs card. So this links in with the balance between opposites and trying to achieve balance in one's life. Al is also linked to the meaning as shown above with A equals Aleph equals ox, and L equals Lamed ox goad, which keeps the ox moving in the right direction as outlined above. Wait, is it? No, it didn't say that Lamed equals ox goad. Is that what it's trying to say? Lamed meaning ox goad. Okay. So let's read that again because I think it's missing a little equal sign. So Ale is also linked to the meaning as shown above with A equals Aleph equals ox and L equals Lamed equals ox goad, which keeps the ox moving in the right direction as outlined above. Al also stands for the name of the book of the law, Liber Al. The main axiom of the book of the law is love is the law under will. With respect to the adjustment card, love is the reconciliation of opposites through karmic balancing. And see, I feel like now we're getting closer to the truth in a way. We're getting closer to something. I'm not even sure how to describe it, because as we talk about, as it says, love is the reconciliation of opposites through karmic balancing. Well, indeed, reconciliation or reintegration, unity is definitely indeed what we want. And love is a state of unity. It is not a state of separation. And so I think we're really getting to the truth of the matter here. And maybe what's ultimately happening is this card, particularly the Thoth version adjustment, is simply stating what I stated earlier about balance being not what we truly want and unity being what we truly want another way. Thoth adjustment tarot card symbology. Mask and leggings with crossed diamonds refers to Harlequin. See something here. Okay. The Harlequin is characterized by his checkered costume. His role is that of a light-hearted, nimble servant, often acting to thwart the plans of his master and pursuing his own love interest. In tarot, he links the adjustment card to the Fool, and this association has already been described in detail. Okay, I'm still not sure how that is the case, though. In tarot, he links the adjustment card to the Fool, and this association has already been described in detail. Well, maybe they're going to say. Well, anyway, whatever. Sword refers to or symbolizes masculine, phallic between her legs, like simulating procreation, and this is how the daughter, He Finel, becomes the mother, He, as shown in the Tetragrammaton cycle above. Represents the will of man and reflects the Book of the Law, quote, love is the law under will, the weapon of Geburah. Green background. This card is ruled by Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So let's focus in here, though, as we're talking. So you can indeed see the sword there that we just went over. Masculine phallic between her legs, like simulating procreation, and this is how the daughter He Finel becomes the mother He, as shown in the Tetragrammaton cycle above, represents the will of man and reflects the Book of the Law, quote, love is the law under will, the weapon of Geburah. And of course, in a much more surfacey, basic, obvious sense, of course, the sword is going to represent the suit of swords, air, representing the intellect, the mental world, which is where objective judgments are rendered. Green background, this card is ruled by Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So that's what the green background in the card represents, which there's a lot of blue in it as well, I'm noticing. Yeah, I can kind of see the green. I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but there it is. All right. Alpha and Omega. Let's see if I can get this just right. Balanced on scales on your crown and showing the beginning and ending of possibilities that are open to us. We must choose wisely and follow our life purpose. Alpha and Omega balanced on her crown. Black chains. The influence of Saturn, which is exalted in Libra. Here we go. Saturn is also restrictive like Geburah and implies the discipline and focus required to follow one's true will to bring about harmony in one's life. So now I'm going to look at that myself. Because I'm new to the Thoth deck. I'm still learning about it. I've used the Rider-Waite for years. I just got the Thoth deck recently. So I'm new to a lot of this stuff when it comes to that, at least, as well. Blue and green spheres in balance, representing the masculine and feminine energies, respectively. Diamond curtain. Hymen, which is broken when the daughter He Finel becomes the mother He. It is also the diamond of Kether, the purity, as seen in the Fool card in his right hand, and symbolically representing the formula AL. And then it shows that diamond of Kether in the Fool's right hand, right there, the Thoth Fool card. All right, and we'll get more of this in a moment. So I'm going to take a brief break. For anyone who watches when this is not live, there's literally no one here right now, according to my view counter. And so I think this would be a good time to take a break. Maybe when I get back, I'll share this to Instagram or something, try to get more people here, or at least some. But in the meantime, I'll be right back. All right, I am back. Back for more. So, all right, let's see here. Gonna go ahead and post to Instagram that I'm live. Hopefully get some people here if we're lucky. It's always much more delightful of an experience that way. And we usually end up learning more because people have questions and comments. So if you're watching when this is not live, I apologize. Maybe fast forward if you want to. Does my shirt feel uncomfortable? All right. I'm gonna try just posting like a video to Instagram, not as a story, but just like as an actual post. Hey guys, I'm currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic. I'm analyzing the adjustment card in tarot, also known as the justice card, and you should come watch. The link is also in my bio, youtube.com/poetic heretic. See how that went. Currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic. I guess it cut me off at first. Currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic. I'm analyzing the adjustment card in tarot, also known as. Well, then I guess we're going to have to make an adjustment, aren't we? See what I did there. All right. Here we go. Wait, I'll do it like this. Hey guys, I am currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic, analyzing the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card, in tarot, and you should come watch. The link is also in my bio, youtube.com/poetic heretic. Hey guys, I am currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic, analyzing the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card, in tarot, and you should come watch. The link is also in my bio, youtube.com/poetic heretic. Let's see, do I like this or do I not? Hey guys, I am currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic, analyzing the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card, in tarot, and you should come watch. The link is also in my bio, youtube.com/poetic heretic. I guess it'll have to do. But I think I'm just going to post it as a story because, I don't know. Seems a bit much the more I think about it to post it as anything else. Also, while we're taking this little intermission here, it's too warm in here, so I'm going to go correct that. All right, let us add that video to my story. Hey guys, I am currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic, Analyzing the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card, in tarot, and you should come watch them. Hey guys, I am currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic. No, I didn't finish. Analyzing the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card, in tarot, and you should come watch them. Hey guys, I am currently live on youtube.com/poetic heretic, analyzing the Justice card, also known as the Adjustment card, in tarot, and you should come watch them. No, hey guys, I am currently live on Instagram. It just doesn't want to shut up, apparently. All right, so let us see what we have here. Maybe I should try harder to go live during the daytime, since that seems to be when I get more viewers. But I don't know. Can't always go live during the daytime because I have other demands, other excitements to follow. So we're now looking at the Chariot to Adjustment transition. It shows a little picture there of the two cards. And it says, the Chariot is about victory after using one's inner drive and willpower to accomplish goals. Adjustment is the balance and harmony that results from the actions of the charioteer. In the process, he has had the vision to cut away all that does not serve him to make room for that which does. Alternatively, if these are reversed, we see that following a path in life that is not constructive would result in disharmony and unbalance. So again, this is an interesting difference between the Thoth deck and the Rider-Waite deck, because yes, in the Thoth deck we're going from the Chariot to Adjustment or Justice, but in the Rider-Waite we're going from the Chariot to Strength, or also known as Lust in this deck, or we're going from the Wheel of Fortune to Justice or Adjustment. So they're different in that respect. Let's see. I'm not doing tarot readings. If you want one of those, you'll have to stick around until the end of the night. Right now, I will be doing them on Wednesday though for donations. So let's go back over this though, because this is significant. The Chariot to Adjustment transition. The Chariot is about victory after using one's inner drive and willpower to accomplish goals. Adjustment is the balance and harmony that results from the actions of the charioteer. The balance and harmony that results from the actions of the charioteer. In the process, he has had the vision to cut away all that does not serve him to make room for that which does. Interesting. So I guess it does. It's interesting how it fits. It does fit a story, I guess, in the Thoth deck, in the Thoth version of things, in the Thoth procession. Actually, you know what? If I'm doing one of these streams and have no viewers and someone comes in and wants a tarot reading, maybe I should say I'm only doing tarot readings right now for a donation of $20 or more or something. It's like, if you really want my time that badly right now, you're going to have to pay for it, because that's obviously not what we're doing in this stream. I don't know why people always think that, but whatever. It's fine. And then it says, alternatively, if these are reversed, we see that following a path in life that is not constructive would result in disharmony and unbalance. Following a path in life that is not constructive would result in disharmony and unbalance. It's interesting, because I always advise people to follow their excitement, and that is, of course, my spiritual practice. And I find that doing that automatically leads you to a path that is constructive, and often in the most unexpected and unpredictable of ways. But then again, choosing to follow your excitement is like going on the fool's journey. It is like going from the fool to the magician card, you know? It is saying, okay, I'm no longer going to be the fool. I'm going to follow my excitement and begin on my path. So you could look at it that way too, I guess. Though I almost sense maybe there's something even deeper to that I'm not presently seeing. Could it be that eventually, in following your excitement, following your bliss, there comes a point where some kind of, say, order and structure is always needed? Could that be the case? I don't know. Thought adjustment divinatory meanings. Aleister Crowley changed the name of this tarot card from justice to adjustment, indicating that justice is not a passive concept, and we maintain the balance in our lives by adjusting to our ever-changing life circumstances. In this way, maintaining balance in our lives is an active process rather than a passive one. It is not something that happens to us, but something we make happen and requires constant assessment and balancing on our part. Adjustment is about self-control and self-order, and in order to maintain harmony in our life. The Adjustment Tarot card encourages us to look at personal responsibility in regards to what happens to us. We see this with the idea of karma, in which every action has some sort of reaction, whether it be in this life or from a past life or in a future life. Thus, every act we do has consequences. When we feel like we're being quote-unquote punished, it is in actuality consequences that we brought on ourselves by our actions. Fascinating. This requirement for constant assessment and balancing, which opens us to spiritual expansion. That's not a complete sentence. Anyway, let's go back over this because this is significant. So Aleister Crowley changed the name of this card, this tarot card, from justice to adjustment, indicating that justice is not a passive concept, and we maintain the balance in our lives by adjusting to our ever-changing life circumstances. Indicating that justice is not a passive concept, and we maintain the balance in our lives by adjusting to our ever-changing life circumstances. Yeah, because adjustment is an active thing. Justice can only really be a noun, whereas adjustment could be a verb when you say adjust or to adjust. Like, it's an action that you take. Adjust, you adjust. Then there's, of course, also the idea of adjustment, but adjustment implies that someone adjusted. It implies that an action has taken place, even in the noun form or the idea of it. So that's fascinating. We maintain the balance in our lives by adjusting to our ever-changing life circumstances. In this way, maintaining balance in our lives is an active process rather than a passive one. It is not something that happens to us, but something we make happen and requires constant assessment and balancing on our part. It's not something that happens to us, but something we make happen and requires constant assessment and balancing on our part. I feel like I'm adjusting to all of this right now as I'm taking this information in more and more. And then it goes on to say, adjustment is about self-control and self-order, and in order to maintain harmony in our life. The Adjustment Tarot card encourages us to look at personal responsibility in regards to what happens to us. We see this with the idea of karma, in which every action has some sort of reaction, whether it be in this life or from a past life or in a future life. Thus, every act we do has consequences. When we feel like we're being quote-unquote punished, it is, in actuality, consequences that we brought on ourselves by our actions. That's interesting, the idea of karma being talked about in this card. Because I'm certainly willing to agree that what you put out is what you get back, and that you will reap what you sow. That's for damn sure. What you focus upon, you'll attract more of, if you want to put it in more like new agey terms, I guess. What else can be said about that? I don't know. I just wouldn't always necessarily say that when we feel like we're being punished, that it's always a result of our actions or some action that we've taken, because it could also just be something that is necessary for the unfoldment of our life purpose, or at least of the path that we're on right now. Like, I don't think every bad thing that could possibly be considered a form of punishment is that, or a result of the actions that we've taken. Yeah, I don't think that. I think it very often is, but not necessarily always. This requirement for constant assessment and balancing, maybe it's supposed to say, is what opens us to spiritual expansion. Or this requirement is for constant assessment and balancing, which opens us to spiritual expansion. Or just this requirement for constant assessment and balancing opens us to spiritual expansion. That's interesting. Yeah, we do have to adjust to our environment and to the way things are around us, you know. We can't just keep moving in a direction that is clearly dangerous just because we've been moving in it. We've always been moving in it. Thought adjustment upright. 1. Taking stock of one's life and seeing what things are useful and what can be let go of that is no longer serving us. 2. Think carefully about our life ahead and be aware that all actions/decisions have their consequences. Look at this happening personally and universally. Encourage yourself to see karma acting on many different levels. 3. Being able to have a clear vision of all the possibilities and choices that lie ahead of you, full, and applying your insights gained so far to live a life which is harmonious and in balance. So it's like saying that the first part of that is referencing the Fool card, the part that says being able to have a clear vision of all the possibilities and choices that lie ahead of you. And then it says, and applying your insights gained so far to live a life which is harmonious and in balance. 4. Discovering and then following your true path or true will and what gives it the most meaning. That's very interesting. That, of course, relates to Crowley's idea of finding one's true will, or at least I think that was his idea. Discovering and then following your true path, true will, and what gives it the most meaning. So the adjustment card, right, and even the Justice Rider-Waite card could be said to be about that. Sort of finding your life purpose, and your true path, your true will, that which you really, truly want to act upon. And of course, I, Poetic Heretic, would add to that, that you can help discern what that is through the feeling of excitement and joy and passion. Thought adjustment reversed. 1. Our life is out of balance and harmony. 2. Refusal to change, parentheses, Saturn/restrictive, to life's circumstances. 3. Unable to find/connect with your true path in life, true will, and therefore doing things which are not fulfilling for you at the moment. Well, no, see, that's powerful stuff. That's powerful. Like, if you get this card reversed in a tarot reading and are using reversals, that right there could give you some very valuable information. You know, like if you're not following your true path. I mean, that's something that people wonder about all the time. And I never heard that in association with the Rider-Waite version of Justice, the Justice card. See, is that Blair gonna leave us alone? You know, it's so ironic though, because as I'm sitting here with no viewers tonight, which is very unusual for me. I mean, it happens sometimes, but it's very unusual. I'm thinking, yeah, it's got to be because this is late at night, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, this is the adjustment stream, right? We're talking about the idea of adjusting to one's circumstances. I'm wondering, am I going to be forced to adjust to only streaming during the daytime or into the evening, but not the late night hours? I don't know. I guess we'll see how this stream goes, and then we'll figure that out. But at the same time, I don't even know if I can do that because here's my authentic truth. If something else is exciting me just as much, if not perhaps even more than these streams that then keeps me up late, then theoretically I should follow that path, no matter what the consequences are. So I'm not quite sure what I think of that just yet, but we'll see. We'll see. The good news about these, as always, is that they're saved to my channel, and so people can watch them afterwards if they want the information contained therein. Though they will have to then unfortunately deal with some of the breaks and whatnot, but well, sorry, there's not really anything I can do about that, much as I try to hurry it along. This is a live stream, not a YouTube video, or not a typical YouTube video. So, next section, Thoth adjustment in the Celtic cross spread. You can see the version of the Celtic cross spread that they have there. We are indeed about to go over the idea of what does this card mean when it appears in each spot of the Celtic cross spread. So if it appears as card 1, heart of the situation, it means the importance of finding one's most important path in life. I think it's supposed to say one's most important, but it says once. But the importance of finding one's most important path in life, if you get it for card 1, the heart of the situation. 2, possible obstacle. Too many obstacles to what we really want to do. I would add to that, maybe I need to find balance and harmony, or see things clearly, or a need for objectivity, a need to figure out one's true path. Three, unconscious influences. Perhaps lost faith in our true path or our ability to reach our goals. 4, recent past. Divorce/marriage. 5, hopes and goals. To have harmony in our life once again. 6, short-term future. legal decisions or a decision to make which will have legal implications. 7. Self-image in this situation, making decisions to reach a better balance in our life. 8. Environment, impending legal matter for the better, as mentioned above, or change in job or house. 9. Guidance and warning, the need to find our true path in life and make the necessary decisions to effect that change. 10. Overall outcome, harmony, balance, following one's true purpose in life. All right, and that concludes that article. It was very good. Very good indeed. So I'm going to take a breather. Still no one here. So after a bit, we will continue. It's interesting for my tarot reading I did for myself tonight. I got the 8 of Cups reversed for my attitude or position on the situation, which can talk about, among other things, a sense of sort of doing what you have to do. That's how I feel. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Doing what I have to do, even though next to no one is watching tonight. But I also got the Tower card for the outside force coming in, and then I got the Knight of Discs for the outcome card. Then I drew an 11th card for more information and got the Fortune card, implying that, first of all, something intense and unexpected should happen tonight, within tonight's stream, and second of all, that the outcome of this is going to be most likely quite successful with that Knight of Discs and the Fortune card. So I look forward to seeing what that's all about. Shit, there was something else I was going to do before we resumed. Now, what was it? I was just going to check more things, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm going to have a new rule for this particular kind of situation. So when I'm doing a stream like this one, and I have either no viewers or just like 1 or 2, maybe 3 viewers at the most, and someone comes in wanting a reading, even though that's clearly not what we're doing here, I think I'm going to say it's like this. We're not doing readings right now, but if someone really wants a reading badly enough, they can leave a $20 donation and I'll give them a reading. Like if they want it that badly to pay that much money, then I will stop our little class here or whatever, since no one or next to no one would be watching anyway, and give them a quick reading. Like if they want it that badly, I'll give it to them. And plus, more authenticity on my part. I need the freaking money. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, I think that's going to be the new rule from now on. But if I already have like more than 3 viewers, then they're just going to have to wait. Unless they, I don't know, donated like $50 or more or something. That would be crazy. Jeez. I'd be like, okay, I'll give you a quick reading if you want it that badly. I'm going to continue here soon. Just if you're watching when this is not live, just give me a moment, please. I just need to take a breather. All right, so let us continue. So next we're going to look up another website or two, maybe get some more surfacey interpretations just on the regular justice card, and then we'll dig deeper. Or at least a little bit deeper, I don't know, whatever we feel like going to next, or whatever I feel like going to next. So next up is psychicrevelation.com. Let's see what they have to say about it. Tarot card interpretation and meaning 11, Justice. So now we're back mainly to the Rider-Waite, though this will also apply to the Thoth version, more or less, largely. Introduction. Justice deals with the idea of karma and the law of cause and effect, stating that all events and all people are connected. It's important to remember that not everything you are dealing with, however, is a direct result of your own actions or karma. Sometimes you will be called upon to deal with the results of the actions of someone you care about, and this can sometimes be as difficult and demanding as it is when you're up against something that is completely of your own making. Don't blame yourself unnecessarily. In general, this card evokes the need for fairness, balance, and harmony. Operate in as balanced and reasonable a fashion as you can. This includes in how you think about and treat yourself. If you are directly involved with a court case, it is likely to be resolved, at least in a large degree, in your favor. Work. You need to be sure that your work/life balance is where it needs to be. Too much emphasis on either throws the other into balance. For most people, one or the other comes more easily to us. Be sure that, regardless of which field, personal life or work, you feel most comfortable in, that you are giving the other part of life as much attention and energy. Balance is necessary in order to thrive. Love. If you are questioning whether you and your long-term partner are likely to stay together, often when this card appears, the answer is that you are likely to choose to go your separate ways. On the other hand, if you are single, this is a time when commitment may be coming your way very shortly. Stay clear about what you most want from relationships, and you are likely to, quote-unquote, find it that much sooner. Finances. This is a good time for games of chance. Very often when this card appears in the context of money, it can mean that a usually fairly small, quote-unquote, windfall is coming your way. Even if you don't gamble in any way, money that you weren't expecting can show up now. There's always a good thing. That's always a good thing. Use it wisely. Health. It's important to stay in the moment and, once again, to pay attention to how you are or are not keeping a sense of balance in your life. Moderation is not just for monks. It's an important part of living a sensible and healthy life. Consider how you might be out of balance, particularly if you have a health challenge now, and remedy the situation. You have the power to do so. Spirituality. This is a time to work on being grounded. Do you feel as though you are connected to the earth and your fellow man? Can you be in the world but not of the world? Balance, again, is the theme here. Working on keeping the proper perspective about life will help you to stay centered. Again, I must reiterate, there's a difference between being centered and being balanced, or being in unity and being in balance. Unity is what we really ultimately want. All right, next up is eclectic.net. Yes, I'm going to take a little break before we read it. All right. Eclectic.net. Justice Tarot card meaning. Justice Tarot symbols. The Justice figure seated or standing between pillars, scales in one hand, usually left, upraised sword in the other hand, sometimes blindfolded. Justice Tarot story. The Fool is looking for a new path, a new aspiration and inspiration for his life. Sitting uncertain at a crossroads, he notices a blind, wise woman listening to two brothers argue over an inheritance. They have come to her for judgment. One brother has the whole inheritance, the other has nothing. Let me make sure my brain took all that in. So, the Fool is looking for a new path, a new aspiration, and inspiration for his life. Sitting uncertain at a crossroads, he notices a blind, wise woman listening to two brothers argue over an inheritance. They have come to her for that judgment, or for judgment. They've come to her for judgment. One brother has the whole inheritance, the other has nothing. Quote, I ask that all of it be given to me, the poor brother demands, not only because I have a better right to it, but because I will not be wasteful with it, as he is. But the rich brother protests, it is rightfully mine, and that's all that should matter, not what I do with it. The woman listens, then awards half of the rich brother's inheritance to the poor brother. The fool thinks this only fair, but neither brother is happy. The rich one hates losing half his wealth, and the poor one feels he ought to have gotten all. You were fair, the fool remarks to the woman after the brothers have left. Yes, I was, she answers plainly. With only half the inheritance, the rich one will stop being so wasteful, and the poor one will have as much as he needs. Even though they cannot see it, this decision was good for both. The fool thinks on this and realizes that he has spent his life achieving worldly ambitions and physical goods while leaving his spiritual self to starve. He ought to have given half his time and energy to his spiritual self, but he didn't. It's no wonder that he feels unbalanced. Thanking the woman, he heads out to restore equilibrium to his inner scales. So let's think about that some more. The fool realizes that he has spent his life achieving worldly ambitions and physical goods while leaving his spiritual self to starve. He ought to have given half his time and energy to his spiritual self, but he didn't. It's no wonder that he feels unbalanced. Thanking the woman, he heads out to restore equilibrium to his inner scales. That's interesting, especially when we consider that that starting with the next card, the Hanged Man, that we'll be getting into next week, we very much get into the dark side of the major arcana, or we at least begin to get into it. Like the Hanged Man could be looked at as the first step in one's journey into the dark side of things. You know, the dark, frightful part of the Fool's journey, basically. So that's fascinating. And plus, also the Hanged Man being like one of the most spiritual of the cards, I would say, of the major arcana. And so here the Fool, according to this site anyway, is saying that he realizes that he's devoted too much of his time to worldly ambitions and not enough to his spiritual life. I fix that blur with the light of the screen somehow. Ugh, God. Can it just not plague us for once? You know what? I'm not even going to fix it right now. I'm done with the blur. Let it fix itself for all I care. Okay. Justice Tarot card meaning. With Libra as its ruling sign, justice is about cold, objective balance through reason or natural force. This is the card that tells the querent that excesses have consequences. Indulging in drinking and drugs will affect their health, just as excessive exercise can damage muscles and joints, and working too much can make one neglect family and friends. Justice urges the querent to make adjustments, do what is necessary to bring things back into balance, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. In a more mundane sense, this card may signal a court case, legal documents, adjustments in a marriage or a partnership. The outcome of all of these may not be exactly what the querent wants, but it will be what they need. It will also be scrupulously fair. If the card is reversed, it can indicate bias, obstruction of the law, or legal complications. 13's observations on justice. I think justice is a good card, as compared to strength, to stand as the first of the next 10 cards of the major arcana. The reason I think it right is because with it, we move from the physical world, first 10 cards, into the metaphysical world, next 10. When I look at justice, I always see the two worlds balanced on her scales. You spend all your time in one, she seems to be saying. Time to move into the other and balance things out. One thing to remember about the justice card is that it is not about punishment, good, bad, right, or wrong. It is about adjustment. The sword suggests that sometimes this won't be pleasant. Actually, before we move on, so that previous paragraph reminded me of something, and I want to make this point before I potentially forget it. So we see also in the path of spirituality this initial phase that seems to be all about like gaining more light of awareness, bringing more light to one's consciousness, often through positive thinking, positive focus. Then we see a second phase where one then uses that light, seemingly, to illuminate the darkness that they've been running from all along. And what I'm wondering is, could the justice and adjustment cards be also about that phase of the spiritual journey, or of one's spiritual journey, or of that kind of dynamic? So, you know, you spend, say, years being like, okay, I know what I don't want. What is it that I do want? Like every time you see something negative, you use it to identify what's the positive. And you're like, okay, I'm all about positive thinking. I'm going to focus positive. And that helps. That certainly gets the energy moving a lot. You know, most people, if not all people who have not embarked upon a spiritual journey to begin with, at least, it gets the energy moving. And they're like, I feel I'm so enlightened now, and I create my own reality, and all I have to do is focus upon what I want, and it comes to me. But meanwhile, as they're doing that, they're focusing on the positive, focus on the positive, focus on the positive. The negative is not getting any attention. But the negative doesn't just go away just because you don't focus upon it. That is where my thesis differs significantly from that of so many of these like new age types. The negative doesn't just go away just because you don't focus upon it, or at the very least not in all cases. What's really happening is your, how do I even say this? You're like, at least this would be my strongest theory at this point. You're bringing light to the side of yourself, the aspects of yourself that you like, or that are in harmony with what you want to be and what you want to be like, but you're continually still splitting yourself off from the dark side of yourself, the negative side of yourself, you know, or so-called negative side of yourself, the shadow side of yourself, the stuff you don't like about yourself. And so it's almost like the case where like someone's like, oh yeah, I can create all the stuff I want. I'm creating it and creating it and creating it, but I'm always running from this darkness, or I'm always running from what's unwanted, what I'm calling unwanted. And there comes a point where you realize that it doesn't matter what you create anymore. It doesn't actually make you happy. It doesn't matter what you manifest. You're still like running in terror from the so-called contrast, or the negative, or whatever, what you don't want, the unwanted. And so then there comes this point where you eventually realize that you have to take the light of consciousness that you've built up, and you have to take it into that darkness. You have to head first, or dive head first into that shadow that you've been running from all your life. And in doing so, you are indeed balancing it, or really what's happening is you're creating a transmutation, a reunification of it. And so what I'm wondering, especially since this card is halfway through the major arcana, or in the Thoth version, it's almost halfway, or somewhat close to halfway. Could this also represent that point, that turning point where one realizes, almost like with what we were just reading, like it doesn't matter how many material things I create, if I'm always running from this darkness within me, then I'm never going to be happy. And so instead of running from it, I'm going to embrace it fully. And thus, therefore, this balancing does take place. This reunification, this reintegration does take place. And the idea of the card balance or adjustments, really unity, harmony is achieved. That would be one of my strongest theories about this card at this point, and its deeper meanings and what it symbolizes for the depths of human consciousness, human awareness. And on that note, kind of as an aside though, I think it's also possible for people to sort of be in both, because I know with me personally, like I've gotten to the point where indeed, like there's no way that I could go on living without integrating the darker aspects of myself, without doing that shadow work and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm also still very excited about the material things that I can create. I am, absolutely. And I make no apologies whatsoever for it. I don't even see a reason to be ashamed or guilty of that or anything at all. I got this new chair just the other day, nearly, I don't know, what's the term, nearly incapacitated myself to put it together because it was so hard to get the freaking bolts to go where they need to go. Well, in a couple areas. But the finished product, it's so exciting. It's so delightful. Like I'm absolutely delighted by that. So I think I'm sort of in both worlds. And I think that a lot of people on their spiritual path, spiritual journey are in both parts. But then a lot of people aren't, these like pure positive focus fanatics are only in the let's focus on the light of our awareness part of it. They're completely rejecting the shadow aspect of things. And that's why eventually it leads them to so many problems. At least that's been my observation. I mean, unless I'm mistaken in my conclusions from what I've seen people die from following a pure positive focus philosophy and refusing to assess and address their trauma and integrate it and all that. People have died from it. So anyway, let's finish up that article. One thing to remember about the Justice card is that it is not about punishment, good, bad, right, or wrong. It is about adjustment. The sword suggests that sometimes this won't be pleasant. Justice pairs things down with that sword so that the scales end up equal. Swords represent the mind and suggest that justice only listens to reason, logic, and facts. She will not be tricked by appeals to emotions or passions, nor bribed for that matter. She will be rational and cool-headed. The message is to that you must... Well, that sentence is not worded correctly. I think it's supposed to say... The message is... Or the message to you, perhaps, is that you must be cool-headed as well. and do what's necessary, no matter how hard, how disagreeable, in order to gain or regain equilibrium. It is not a nice card, but it is a very wise card. Learn, okay, then that's the end of it. Okay, interesting. All right, then in just a moment, we will continue, this time with some book material. Oh, it's midnight sharp right now. Just had the moon align with Mars in Aries earlier tonight as I'm recording this. Interesting, since we're talking about a card that is Libran, and Libra is the opposite sign to Aries, and the whole thing is about the idea of balance, about opposites. So kind of funny how that worked out. Okay, so we're going to continue here in just a moment. As soon as I pull up the information. It is loading now. Okay, in Path of the Fool by Michael Tessarion, it states, justice/adjustments. And this is going to apply to both the Rider-Waite and the Thoth version. Card name, Justice Adjustment. Card number 11, element air. Modality, cardinal. Astrological correspondence, Libra. Planet rulers, Venus and Moon. That's interesting, I didn't know that. The Moon is also associated with this card, according to this. Season, winter. Alchemy, sublimatio. Kabbalistic correspondence, Dath, path 22. Mythic correspondence, Mayat, Persephone, Lakshmi, Durga, Kali, Sphinx. And now for the meanings. Balance, equilibrium, equanimity, honesty, integrity, truth, morality, dignity, honor, fairness, good judgment, correct apportionment, rectification, economy of action, perfection, intellectual brilliance, excellence, objectivity, sensitivity, moral distinction, social skills, etiquette, manners, grace, decorum, geometry, symmetry, proportion, aesthetics, art, design, architecture, structure, physical beauty, cosmetic appearance, image, fashion, legal transactions and agreements. Contracts, collaborations, cooperation, partnership, diplomacy, arbitration, choices, decisions, courts, verdicts, litigations, justice, civil rights, factual data, truthful statements, tests, examination, law of karma, judges, lawyers, paralegals, police, detectives, accountants, counselors, consultants, advisors, diplomats, civil servants, specialists, analysts, pundits, scientists, mathematicians, marriage, engagements, intimate partnerships, women of power, influence, and genius. Negative. Now it's going to go over a list of negative meanings for the card when upright. Severity, coldness, aloofness, ambivalence, neutrality, avoidance, judgmentalism, righteousness, conservatism, formality, sternness, austerity, inflexibility, intractability, fixation, pedantry, cunning, manipulation, interrogative behavior, fussiness, arrogance, argumentative, perfectionism, preoccupation with rules and regulations, preoccupation with precision, narcissism, superiority complex, duplicity, dissimulation, ruthlessness, evil. Reversed. Imbalance, tough karma, adverse judgments, unfavorable verdicts, failure of contractual agreements, wrong advice received, good advice ignored, carelessness, waste, misuse of resources, dishonesty, deception from a counselor, lawyer, or confederate, client problems, rights denied or violated, unpaid debts, failing in a test, lack of discipline, emotion overriding reason, unclear thinking, irrational decisions, poor communication, mental disorder, subjectivity, one-sided opinions, heedless of evidence and facts, lack of honor and integrity, betrayal, ugliness, lack of sophistication, breaking the law, criminality, corruption, evil, divorce, death of a spouse. The reverse position advises us to either strengthen the positive or release the negative traits associated with the card. Bioenergetic. Inner ear, balance, poise, posture, sight, peripheral vision, observation, discrimination, skin, complexion, hormones, endocrine system. So I think it's fascinating that it says about posture there, that we're going over this card. This just happened to be right after I got, finally, after all these years, my new chair that I have here, giving me better posture, hopefully and ideally. All right, so that concludes that section on the Justice card. We'll look up another website here, another website or two here in a moment. Another thing is, this has nothing to do with the Justice card, at least not really, but I'd like to get some better lighting in here at some point. And I was testing some stuff out earlier, and I found that really the issue is not that I don't have other light that I could turn on and shine on me right now. The issue is my webcam. The issue is the camera. The issue is that it looks terrible when I do that, basically. So I might try to figure something out. I don't know, maybe if I did some combination of the lamp behind me, I could get it to look better, or maybe I just need a new webcam, which I'm sure I could get before too long. There's a really good one on Amazon for, I think, $50, which hopefully I can get at some point. I don't know. It's just something that maybe it does fit in, actually, the idea of adjustment, trying to adjust to the circumstances, get better lighting. It's something that I want to do at some point. So I almost wonder if, because obviously what would be most ideal would be getting like a box light or a ring light, some kind of professional lighting. But it may not even be that so much as my needing a better webcam or a better camera of some kind for these streams. It might also be that the colors of the walls here are not conducive to an ideal look, and so maybe if I could get some, say, sound insulation behind me and then shine a brighter light on me, maybe that would look better. I don't know. The only way to know is the only way to find out is to try it. So I might do that sometime soon once I get some more money. Of course, now that monetization is re-enabled for me, I just might get some more money soon, depending on how things go. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's not like I can make a whole lot off of that, but we'll have to see. If I do more tarot reading for donation streams and I get enough clients or whatever, then actually I probably could make a good amount of money in a short period of time. But the issue with that seems to be that never really get that many people during those, at least so far. But we'll see. I'm still going to do those probably at least once a week, and maybe my luck will improve. We'll see. All right, so I'm going to pull up the next article here in just a moment. I do really like the thumbnail that was created by putting these two cards together tonight for the stream. I think it's beautiful seeing the two of them together and like the contrast of their colors, like the reds and the blues. I think it's gorgeous, in fact. I'm not saying that as to like give myself credit. I'm talking about the cards themselves. Like the cards themselves look beautiful next to each other. And against like the black background. I really like it. Anyway, see what we can find here. Looks like next up is horoscope.com, their article on the Justice card. Okay, let's see what we've got. Justice. Keywords. Excuse me. I guess I can't talk right now. No, I'm good. Keywords. Balance, rules, detachment, karma. And for some reason, there is an exclamation mark after the word karma, which is weird and odd and curious. But anyway, astrological correspondence, Libra. Based on the realization that life is ultimately fair and just, the Justice card symbolizes balance, harmony, and fairness in our lives. She represents the choices we make, reminding us to base them on planning, reflection, rationality, and a weighing of options between the sword and the scales. In love relationships, this is reflected by honesty, respect, and loyalty. In professional life, by essential values like professionalism, respect for established processes and procedures, and adherence to reporting systems. In negative situations, this card can resemble imbalance, coldness, and a destructive streak impeding relationships. Let me just think of what I think about this real quick. In negative situations, this card can resemble imbalance, coldness, and a destructive streak impeding relationships. Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense because, yeah, if this card is going to manifest negatively, well, what have I been reiterating in this whole stream? The idea of balance is going to imply division. Well, that would be the negative thing then. That would be a very plausible negative interpretation of this card is division, particularly in a relationship reading. Again, if it manifests negatively, though, you have to, of course, look at the context of the reading to figure that out, the other cards, as well as the question itself and trusting your own intuition. Let's see, does this have anything else? I guess not. All right, well, let's go on to something else. You know, if we finish early tonight, I guess this has no real relevance to anyone who watches when this is not live, but nevertheless, I'm going to say it anyway. If we finish early tonight, I might come back later and do another live tarot reading stream, where if someone wants to leave me a donation of any amount, it would be of any amount in that case, I'll give them a tarot reading. That could be fun. Because tonight we are just going through the material like rapid fire. It's like one thing after another. And I think we might finish a lot earlier. It's probably because there's been so fewer people here the whole time. Which that's unfortunate, but I guess maybe a silver lining of that is we're getting through the material faster. I don't know. And I could do a whole other type of stream. I don't know. But I might do that tonight. Just thinking about that. So what else do we have? The Wikipedia entry, wikipedia.org. Justice Tarot card. Justice is a major arcana tarot card numbered either 8 or 11 depending on the deck. This card is used in game playing as well as in divination. Description. The Justice card as a member of the tarot deck appears in early tarot such as the Tarot de Marseille. It is part of the tarot's major arcana and usually follows the Chariot as card 8, although some decks vary from this pattern. Interesting. According to this, it usually follows the Chariot as card 8, saying that is the more common order, when it appears in many ways to possibly, arguably be wrong, but I don't know. Although some decks vary from this pattern. The virtue Justice accompanies 2 of the other cardinal virtues in the major arcana, Temperance and Strength. The scales in her left hand are made of gold, symbolizing a balanced decision. Numbering. Justice is traditionally the 8th card and Strength the 11th, but the influential Rider-Waite Smith deck switched the position of these 2 cards in order to make them better fit with the astrological correspondences worked out by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Today, many decks use this numbering, particularly in the English-speaking world. Both placements are considered valid. Fascinating. And it shows a picture and it says, Allegory of Justice by Raphael. In the Italian Renaissance, Justice did not usually appear blindfolded. You can see right there. Oh my God, is it ever going to focus? Holding it with both hands now, trying to hold it still. Okay. It's a bit of an awkward angle or position holding up to my webcam, so that's why I can't hold it completely still so easily. And that's literally it for the entry on Wikipedia. So I guess for what it was, it sounds about accurate. Let's see, I'm gonna add tarot to the search because we're getting some other kinds of results here that don't seem quite so relevant. Let's look now at the biddytarot.com entry on the Justice Tarot card. I know we often save this for part 2 of the stream, but I don't know, we might finish early tonight, so I'm wanting to do it now. Just in case. Justice Tarot card meanings. Keywords: upright, justice, fairness, truth, cause and effect, law. I just kicked my subwoofer accidentally, but it's all right. Reversed: unfairness, lack of accountability, dishonesty. Justice Tarot card meanings and description. The figure of Justice sits in front of a loosely hung purple veil, signifying compassion, and between 2 pillars similar to those framing the High Priestess and the Hierophant, which symbolize balance, law, and structure. You know what's also interesting about the timing of the stream, I might add? So I guess it didn't exactly time out perfectly, but it's just that it's in the Rider-Waite anyway, card 11. Card 11 is Justice, and yesterday, of all days, was January 11th, 1/11. And so we have the ones, the 11, the idea of justice. And we also had a Sun-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn yesterday, which isn't exactly going to indicate justice per se, but it is going to indicate an illumination of that which is normally hidden, and also an illumination of power, which kind of could be said to have some connection with that. Plus, it was in Capricorn, the sign ruled by Saturn, which talks about karma and cause and effect, which is indeed connected to this card. So, that's fascinating. And what was the other thing I was to say about that? Oh, just that, of course, a Sun-Saturn conjunction, which we had like a week ago or something, would have been even more appropriate, but it was Sun-Pluto. And yet Saturn and Pluto have, my theory is anyway, some interesting connections as well. There's also an interesting news story I think I saw in the media yesterday, something about someone got justice in a court case against someone, but I guess whatever that was all about, we're not going to get into it right now. No need to get into the details, just adding to the interesting, the fascination of the timing of this. These streams always seem to match the timing of things. It's so weird. So, moving on. She holds a sword in her right hand, showing the logical, well-ordered mindset necessary to dispense fair justice. The sword points upwards, expressing a firm and final decision, and the double-edged blade signifies that our actions always carry consequences. The scales in her left, intuitive hand, show intuition must balance that logic and are a symbol of her impartiality. Justice wears a crown with a small square on it representing well-ordered thoughts, and a red robe with a green mantle. A little white shoe pops out from beneath her clothing, as a reminder of the spiritual consequences of your actions. And again, you can see that square right there in the card as I hold it up to the camera. Justice wears a crown with a small square on it representing well-ordered thoughts and a red robe with a green mantle. All right. So let us continue now with the meanings. Upright Justice Tarot card meanings. The Justice card represents justice, fairness, truth, and the law. You're being called to account for your actions and will be judged accordingly. If you have acted in alignment with your higher self and for the greater good of others, you have nothing to worry about. However, if you haven't, you will be called out and made to own up to your actions. If this has you shaking in your boots, know that the Justice card isn't as black and white as you may think. A level of compassion and understanding accompany justice, and although you may have done something you regret, this card suggests that you will be treated fairly and without bias. Be ready to take responsibility for your actions and stand accountable for the ensuing consequences. If you seek justice, then the Justice card is a positive sign that it will indeed be served. You may be part of a legal case or awaiting final judgment from the courts or a governing body or institution. A ruling will be passed down shortly. Once the decision is made, you must accept it and move on. There are no retrials or second chances with the Upright Justice card. The Justice card often appears when you need to make an important choice with the potential for long-term repercussions. Be aware of the impact your decisions will have on your well-being and the well-being of others. Choose consciously by connecting with your inner guidance system, your intuition, and asking for the answer that is most in alignment with the highest good of all. Be ready to stand by your decisions as you will be held to account for the choices you make. You need to ask yourself, do I stand by my decisions and accept the consequences of my actions? If you cannot, then dig deeper, plunging into the shadows of what is right and wrong until you find the place where you can stand in integrity and strength. At its core, justice is about the search for truth. As you explore your truth, you will discover that things are not as clear-cut as you had thought. Be prepared to dip into the murky waters and explore what truth means to you. Be consciously aware of what you believe to be true and what you believe to be fair and ethical. It may not be as clear-cut as you think, so prepare to challenge yourself and to explore new territories of your belief system. All right. Just going to read back over a bit of this and see if I have anything to say about it. It is perhaps a bit odd that they're saying, like, use your intuition to help you figure out the right decision when justice is a card so much of the intellect and the mind and logical thinking. But maybe in a larger sense, and what's generally just good advice, is use logic and intuition. Use the mind and the heart when making important decisions. Why the hell should you just use one or the other? Why not use both? So let's see. Yeah, that final paragraph almost sounds like they're advising the exploration of beliefs and belief systems, which I, of course, highly recommend. Absolutely highly recommend. Now, reversed justice tarot card meanings. The reversed justice card can suggest that internally, you know you've done something that isn't morally right. Others may not see it yet, so you have a choice. You can hide it and hope no one finds out, or you can own up to your mistakes and take focused action to resolve the situation. Whichever you choose, you will need to live with the consequences on your conscience, so go with what feels right for you. Similarly, justice reverse suggests that you are not willing to take full accountability for your actions and may try to, quote-unquote, dodge the bullet and blame others for your mistakes. You are being dishonest with yourself and others, and your unwillingness to look beyond your own fears and ego blinds you to the broader lesson. Assess your situation once more, this time intending to discover where you can accept responsibility. Once you acknowledge where you made a mistake, do whatever you can to make it right again. In doing so, you will free yourself from any guilt or shame and empower yourself to make better decisions. Again, let me analyze that. Indeed. The ego never wants to be wrong, and so the ego can often get in the way of our taking responsibility for our actions. And what else did this say? Hang on. And being honest with ourselves, which we have to do. We can't get caught in the trap of the ego. But it's interesting because the aspect of us that does not want to be wrong, the ego, is also still an aspect of us, I would say. And so if we truly want to be unified within, I would say we have to be present with that aspect of ourselves as well. And so I know we're kind of taking things to a whole nother level here, it seems, but that's my advice, Like, and it's funny because it's so fitting for the justice or adjustment card, because we hear so much in spiritual advice, like, be honest with yourself, but well, actually, even beyond that, be present with the part of yourself that you're not identifying with. But the question I'm asking here is, can we go so far in being present with a part of ourselves that we are normally not identifying with, that we stop identifying with the other part of ourselves, the more like egoic part of ourselves? Because that's not good either. We need to be unconditionally present with all parts or aspects of ourselves. So that's another key thing. It's like, listen, if you feel, oh, this freaking blur. If you feel intense anger or hatred towards someone, for example, and sure, you could say, oh, that's the ego, or that's whatever. And you could say, well, maybe that's just because there's deep hurt underneath that you need to be present with. Well, indeed you do, but you also need to be present with the aspect of yourself that feels the intense anger or hatred, because you see, there's so many potential traps we can get into in the realm of spirituality here, because even as I've been saying on this stream, it's like, oh my God, how do I even say this? It is of the utmost importance that these clarifications be made, understood, studied, and thoroughly comprehended, because there are so many potential traps in spirituality, and I don't pretend to know what they all are either, but here's one of them. So I've been talking about in this stream, in this very stream, and of course others, this idea about how we need inner unity. We need unification, not separation. But what happens when we discover that there are aspects of ourselves, or there's one or more aspects of ourselves that want separation? What do we do then? And I'll tell you what we do then. The only thing we can do then is we be unconditionally present with those aspects as well. We be unconditionally present with the aspects of ourselves that want separation. And that means we be unconditionally present with the aspects of ourselves that want to go on hating someone, or being mad at someone, or at the very least being separated from someone, that want to shut someone out, that don't want someone in our lives, that don't want resolution with someone. And I can relate to this, by the way. I can think of one person in particular right now as we're talking, as we're speaking, that's just so disgusting to me. And it's no one that I've ever met in person, so no one no one in my life who might watch this think that I'm talking about you, because I can pretty much guarantee you I'm not. Like, if I've met you in person, if we've ever been friends, then I'm definitely not talking about you. This is someone I was never friends with or anything. But this particular individual, I just find so disgusting and so just ew, just so wretched, that there's this huge part of me, or like many aspects of me, if you want to look at it that way, that just so want separation from him, that just so do not want him in my life, or especially do not want resolution with him. And so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be like, oh, well, that's not spiritual, so I'm just going to pretend like I don't feel that way and be like, oh, well, I have to find resolution with him or whatever? No, absolutely fucking not. I'm going to be unconditionally present with those aspects of me that want separation and that want to never, ever find resolution with this person. Because those aspects of me are equal and valid, just like the aspects of me that may actually want resolution are. equal and valid parts of me. They're all equal and valid parts of me. And when you have them in yourself, they're all equal and valid parts in yourself. And they not only want, but they deserve your attention. They deserve your unconditional love. They deserve your presence. They deserve your being there for them. And that means allowing yourself to feel them without judgment, without saying, oh, this is bad, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or, oh, I should feel this way, or whatever. These aspects of yourself, they're screaming and crying for your attention. And what do so many people do? They suppress them. They're like, oh, you know, and even especially we see this with inner child work and stuff like that. You know, your inner child is caged within you, screaming and crying for your attention. And what are you saying? You're saying, pour me another drink. Let's drown this with alcohol. Or let's turn on the TV. I want to be distracted from this. Or let's immerse myself in other people. Let's distract myself through other people. And let's make sure we don't talk about that, whatever that issue was that just surfaced in my mind. And meanwhile, your inner child feels neglected, abused, and in fact is by that behavior. And so I'm not wanting to, oh boy, the paradox of this is like, I'm not wanting to overly condemn that behavior either, because you could even say that's an aspect of you, but just be aware of what you're doing. You know, yes, you're doing what you should be doing in that area, I suppose. You're giving that aspect of you your attention. You sure as hell are. But you need to give the other aspect of yourself attention too, in that case, in that scenario. That would indeed be a situation where it's like, give your inner child attention. You know, that inner child is a part of you. Everything you feel, every thought you have is in one way or another a part of you. Give it your attention. Love it unconditionally. Otherwise, you're hating a part of yourself. And yes, again, the paradox or whatever is that also goes for the parts of yourself that don't want to do any of that. So that's what's kind of weird about it. So even the part of yourself, or even the parts of yourself that are resistant, are a part of you, and you have to be unconditionally loving and present with those as well. So I think I explained that pretty thoroughly. So anyway, hang on, let me just analyze this a bit more, and we'll continue. Yeah, it's interesting also what it's saying in the first paragraph here about like the reverse justice card can suggest that internally you know you've done something that isn't morally right. Because, I don't know, I'm not going to say a lot about this, but basically, just because you may get away with something, you may get away with doing something that isn't morally right, doesn't change the fact that you did it. It doesn't change the fact that on deeper levels, everyone knows you did it, even if they're not consciously aware of it. It doesn't change the fact that you took on and put out that specific kind of energy. You know, the truth of yourself is so much more plain than you might think. And so it's important that we have integrity when no one is looking, as well as when people are, when eyes are upon us. That's what I strive to do anyway. The reverse justice card can indicate your inner critic is in full effect. You may be evaluating your every move and coming down hard on yourself when you misstep. If this resonates, start from a place of forgiveness and self-acceptance. Show yourself a bit of kindness and compassion, knowing we all make mistakes. Thank your inner critic for bringing this private judgment to your conscious awareness, and trust you can now clear it away. Yeah, remember that self-acceptance means, well, it's like the idea of self-love. It means what I was just talking about a little bit ago, being unconditionally present with every aspect of yourself, regardless of how it feels. So if it feels uncomfortable to look at it, then just feel the discomfort and give it your attention anyway. Just feel, allow, be present with the discomfort. And then you'll most likely find the discomfort lifting off of you like water evaporating into the air. If you are making an important decision that will impact others, be aware if you are holding on to any prejudice or bias that can sway your decision unfairly. You may need to source more information to make a balanced decision or shine the light on your own personal judgments. If you're making an important decision that will impact others, be aware if you are holding on to any prejudice or bias that can sway your decision unfairly. You may need to source more information to make a balanced decision or shine the light on your own personal judgments. Interesting. All right, I guess we'll just leave that paragraph at that. If you are engaged in a legal matter, you may fear an unfair outcome or dispute the final judgment, calling into question the legal process. There may be legal complications or something that impedes justice in being served. All right. I don't know why I'm getting so analytical all of a sudden, but that's what I'm doing. And that is the end of that article. All right, well, we have covered quite a bit of ground here. So, oh boy, let me think about where we should go from here. It's a real active stream tonight, you know. I don't know, dude. I don't know if I can handle it. So much activity going on in this stream tonight. Like, it's kind of overwhelming, actually, to be honest. Like, wow, I don't know what happened since the last one, but oh boy. So let's see, we've been streaming for almost 3 hours. The hell's a video? Like, okay, there it goes. We've been streaming for almost 3 hours. Going to need to eat again somewhat soon. But here we are through so much of the justice card. You know, one thing that just came to mind actually, um, talking about the Kabbalistic correspondences with the Tree of Life in the Justice card, like we see the two pillars, and I was saying earlier about, and you know, at least one of the articles we read mentioned their hearkening back to the pillars of Yakin and Boaz in the High Priestess card. Well, what I'm thinking of is like in that card specifically, they're representing the Tree of Life pillars of mercy on the right and severity on the left. It's mercy and wisdom on the right, and then it's severity and understanding on the left. And so what I'm thinking is the Justice card, at least as it is depicted in the Rider-Waite, is also inevitably going to be referencing those pillars. And so it's like saying, if we look at it that way, it's like saying that perhaps we have to use both sides of that tree, because one is all about logic, the pillar of severity and understanding, and the other is all about like emotion, the pillar of mercy and wisdom. And you could also say like one's very conservative and the other is all about being liberal, and all kinds of stuff, I guess, all kinds of dichotomies. But it's like saying that with the Justice card here, we have to have a balance, or maybe on an even deeper level, as I've been saying, a unification or integration of those ideas. I think that's what we have. So it's interesting on the Rider-Waite, as I'm looking at it here, to see that the pillar of severity and understanding is where the sword that she is holding is, and then the pillar of mercy and wisdom is where the scales are. I'm not entirely sure what the significance of that might be, but I bet that there is one. I mean, I can sort of guess. The swords, of course, talking about even just very simply the suit of swords, air, intellect, logic, and that pillar of severity being very logical and whatnot. But then the scales, why would that be associated with the pillar of severity and wisdom, I wonder? I don't quite get that part of it, but maybe we'll figure it out at some point. So let's see here. So I'm almost a bit conflicted on where to go from here. I don't know if I should try to confine all the material with this stream or not, but I do know that I want to look very soon here at the 78 Degrees of Wisdom book, one of the best sources that we have for this material, for understanding these cards. Let's see how many pages that is. 5 pages. It's unfortunate that I don't have very many people watching tonight, because normally I could like ask the chat. I'd be like, well, what's your opinion on this? Should we push forward? Should we take a break? Guess it's up to me to decide this time. Interesting, since the Justice card is all about decisions. Well, let me think. Let me just think for a moment. One thing I'm thinking of is I definitely want to push this as far as I possibly can. I'm all about extremes. I'm not about balance or justice. Or I'm not about balance. I'm not about justice in the sense of balance, I guess, to be honest, when it comes to many things. Though I suppose I'm balanced when I have to be, but no. Yeah, I want to push it as far as I possibly can. So I think it may be ideal. I think it may be ideal indeed to continue here. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do tonight is we're going to read the 78 Degrees of Wisdom section on this card, and then we'll go from there. Although I also wanted to look more specifically at the Thoth meanings, so perhaps we can save those for later. All right, 78 Degrees of Wisdom, Justice. The image of this trump derives from the Greek Titaness Themis. Themis, not sure how to say it, Themis, who appears with her blindfolded scales on courthouse frescoes throughout the Western world. The legal Justitia, to give her Latin name, was blindfolded to demonstrate that the law does not discriminate and applies to weak and powerful alike. The principle of social justice, however, properly belongs to the emperor, directly above justice. Card 11 indicates that the psychic laws of justice, by which we advance according to our ability to understand the past, depends on seeing the truth about ourselves and about life. The Tarot Justitia, therefore, wears no blindfold. So far, we have spoken of the second line as a process of withdrawal from outer concerns to awaken the inner vision of ourselves and of life. But a vision of the underlying nature of things is meaningless if it does not produce an active response. We must always act, the magician principle, on the wisdom received from the inner self, the high priestess principle. Not just the perfectly balanced scales, but all the images on the card point to an equilibrium between understanding and action. The figure, a woman, appears androgynous. Though she sits firmly on her stone bench, she looks poised to stand. One foot points outward from her robe, the other remains hidden. So let me focus in on this some more. Not just the perfectly balanced scales, but all the images on the card point to an equilibrium between understanding and action. The figure, a woman, appears androgynous. Already read that. The sword, an emblem of action, points straight upward, indicating both resolve and the idea that wisdom is like a sword piercing through the illusion of events to find the inner meaning. Two-edged, the sword signifies choice. Life requires us to make decisions. At the same time, each decision, once made, cannot be revoked. It becomes part of us. We are formed by the actions we have taken in the past. We form our future selves by the actions we take now. Interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to stay live until the 4-hour mark, which is in about 52 minutes from now. And then I'll take a break and then come back. And I don't know, we'll see. We'll go from there. So Two-edged, the sword signifies choice. Life requires us to make decisions. At the same time, each decision, once made, cannot be revoked. It becomes part of us. That's interesting. The idea of every decision we make becoming eternally an integral part of us. The scales also represent the perfect balance of past and future. Past and future balance, not in time, but in the clear sight of justice staring out at you from the exact center of the major arcana. Perfect balance of past and future. Past and future balance, not in time, but in the clear sight of justice staring out at you from the exact center of the major arcana. Throughout the first half of the major arcana, when a person involves himself in the outer world, he suffers from the illusion that he is living life on the active principle. This is because we confuse doing things with action. As we turn inwards, we assume we turn away from action, and indeed the process of line 2 cannot be accomplished without a pause in our outer lives, or at least a shift in attention. But real action, as opposed to pointless movement, always brings meaning and value to our lives. Such action comes out of understanding. Otherwise, we remain, I think it's supposed to say truly passive, machines being pushed from one event to the next with no understanding of what causes us to do the things we do. The true purpose of line 2 is not to abandon the active principle, but to awaken it. I think basically what this article means when it says line 2 is like the second half of the major arcana. And so that would begin, actually, would that begin with the Justice card or the Hanged Man card? Wait. Well, there's 22 cards total, so yeah, but if we start with the Fool, then the Wheel of Fortune would be the 11th, and then yeah, line 2 would be Justice, if we look at it that way. The imagery of Trump 11 combines the Magician and the High Priestess more completely than ever before. First of all, the digits of number 11 add up to 2, but the number also signifies a higher version of 1, as well as a lesser version of 21. The woman seated before 2 pillars with a veil between them suggests the High Priestess, but her red robe and her posture, one arm up, one arm down, implies the Magician. True action arises from self-knowledge. Wisdom arises out of action. In life, as in the picture, the Magician and the High Priestess are inextricably combined, like a male and female snake twined around each other, symbol of the Kundalini as well as the caduceus of Hermes, or the double helix of DNA. Let me think about this. True action arises from self-knowledge. Wisdom arises out of action. In life, as in the picture, the Magician and the High Priestess are inextricably combined, like a male and female snake twined around each other, a symbol of the Kundalini, as well as the caduceus of Hermes, or the double helix of DNA. Yeah, the caduceus of Hermes is a recurring theme throughout the tarot, in both the Rider-Waite and Crowley-Thoth versions, as far as I can tell. The color of the veil is purple, emblem of inner wisdom. Background, crown, hair, and scales are all yellow, signifying mental force. Wisdom does not arise spontaneously. We must think about our lives if we wish to understand them, but all our thinking goes nowhere unless it develops out of a clear vision of truth. Interesting. Stand by for one moment. Apparently I just got 2 new subscribers. Yay, thank you, whoever subscribed. So I'm thinking actually I might have to end this stream here and then resume in part 2, because I am getting like kind of tired from being hungry. Like I'm not tired, but I'm like hungry, tired, if that makes sense. So Yeah, I thought this might happen. I hope that it wouldn't, but before I started reading that particular book section that we were just on, so I am gonna have to like cut the stream here and go have lunch, but then I will come back in an hour or two with part 2 of the justice or adjustment card, and we'll go through the remaining material, and after that, I just might do yet another stream where I'll do tarot readings for donations of any amount. I don't know if there will be people up at that time, but hopefully there will be, and we can do that then. Lunch, yes indeed. I have to go making my lunch right now, which I'm sorry if you just got here, but yeah, I have to head out for a bit. But I'll most likely be back around an hour, maybe a little bit over, depending on things. But yeah, I'll be back with more on the Justice card. So thanks to those who were here earlier and who kind of popped in and out, who did watch. And thanks to you, Rishanice, who's watching now. Have a good night. And I will be back soon.